Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, this week we're going to be talking about a topic that is important to think about when living an intentional life. It is the reason, if not the only reason, at least the primary reason, why we haven't manifested the lives we have intended for ourselves yet. And if you already know what I'm about to say it for me. Yeah? The topic is resistance. That's right, resistance. And we always need to check in to our resistance when living an intentional life, because truly, when we have intended something for our lives, it's already placed out there on our path. Our powerful river of intention is flowing toward it until we change course for ourselves. And if we haven't gotten there yet, if we feel like it keeps being pushed off somewhere into the future that we cannot see, that is due to resistance. So this week we're going to talk about resistance. And we're going to use the same gorgeous text that I used last week for this week's spread. Yeah? So let's take a look at this gorgeous spread. You can see that this week, just as last week, I'm using the empathic oracle for the central cards of the spread, and then around it we have inquiry cards and four sets of tarot cards. One of them being the Tarot de Saint Croix, one of them being the Fountain Tarot. And if you're curious about creators, there will be information at the end of the video, so stick around and take a look at that. And there are also going to be links below if you want to go and purchase one or all of these decks on your own. So friends, you looked at that spread, right? Artistically, it's gorgeous. And also the meaning is gorgeous. So let's look at the meaning. First, let's look at the central three cards of the spread. The three cards in the center of this spread, just like in all of my week ahead spreads that I've been using, give us the central theme of the spread, and the cards around it give us questions which are answered by tarot cards. And the three cards for this spread from the empathic oracle again give us the main theme, and the first card of those three cards this time gave us the main topic, which is resistance. Resistance. We talk about resistance a lot when we talk about living an intentional life, because resistance, if it's not the only, it's at least the primary reason we have not manifested the lives that we have intended. So what is resistance? Well, resistance is an energetic closing down or pushing away. And so you may ask, why would I push away the life that I'm intending? Well, it's because it's not the life that we're intending that we're pushing away usually, but the events that lead us to the life we intend, that we resist for some reason. We are frightened of the next step. We are uncertain of our ability. We are generally unwilling to change as much as we need to change to become the person who will manifest the life that we are intending. Remember, the lives that we are intending, the lives that we intend are already there energetically. Our powerful current of intention is flowing in that direction, unless we make a different decision. The only step that's missing is that we need to become an energetic match to that thing. And the way we become an energetic match is by following the course of our intention, which will bring experiences and ideas and knowledge and growth and evolution to that person who can live that life that we have intended. So resistance, many of us think of as our number one enemy. However, we don't want to put anything in an enemy status, because that is another form of resistance. If we end up resisting resistance, all we end up doing is making our resistance stronger. So, let's go back to the beginning. What is resistance? One experience of resistance is feeling stuck. Feeling that something is not happening. Something that we want to happen is not happening. We're not able to make the next step forward, take the next step forward. Or it could be a feeling that we keep going through the same cycle over and over again. We keep meeting the same wrong person. We keep making the same mistakes, remembering that there are no mistakes, there are only experiences that lead us to success. However, we keep repeating the same experience rather than moving past and forward through it. So those are two experiences of indications that there is resistance somewhere. One, we feel like we're not moving forward with our current of intention, or that we're in a repeating cycle, a kind of Groundhog Day, if you will, reliving the same day over and over and over again. Now, both of those are indications of, very strong indications of resistance. So what are they indicating? They're indicating that we are resisting experience. There is an experience that we will have in order to move through to the next stage of our manifestation and move through with the powerful current of our intention. We could be resisting knowledge. We could be resisting learning what we need to know to be able to become the person who will have the life that we have intended for ourselves. We could be resisting direction. Yeah? We could be resisting moving in a certain path or receiving instructions and direction from other people. There are many, many forms of resistance and many, many things that we resist. And each form and each thing that we resist closes us down, shuts us off from access, full access to the powerful force of intention. We never lose connection with intention. Remember that. We can never lose our connection to intention. However, we can sure cut it off to an extent where we are moving at a snail's pace or slower. So what can we do? The first suggestion is to choose to learn. We need to choose to open ourselves from our resistance and to choose to learn, to choose to feel. A lot of the time we are resisting emotional growth. We're resisting feeling those negative feelings that will allow us to move through them and past them and into the next thing. Or we may be resisting letting go of those feelings. We may be resisting feeling the next feeling. We may be resisting moving out of, for example, a cycle of grief, because we're afraid that if we let go of our grief, we'll be letting go of that person or that experience that we are grieving. We will forget it. And we don't want to forget, for example, a parent or a loved one or another kind of family member or a friend who is passed out of our experience physically. Another thing I would like us all to remember as much as we can: all of our relationships are eternal. When our parent dies, when my father died, it hit me hard. Harder than I expected that it would. And I felt deep grief for at least a year. It continued past that, but I could say that there was around a year where I felt it the strongest. And that's just me putting borders around it, but still. I felt it for about a year strongly. However, I also knew, I was fortunate to know, and fortunate to be able to remember quickly, that my connection to my father is not gone. What I'm grieving is his physical presence, his physical body in this physical universe. And that's fine. We can always grieve that. Allowing ourselves to grieve that is part of the process of moving forward, I believe. However, grieving a loss of my father was a mistake, because I have not lost my father. My father and I are eternally connected. It's just a different form of connection, because he no longer has a physical body to interact with me. Can you hear that difference? That every one of our connections as spiritual beings in this physical universe are eternal. We do not lose any of that. However, we do lose physical connection. And that's something that we can grieve, and we can allow ourselves to grieve and move past and through that grief. Remembering that we want to move through it. We don't want to sit in it and feel that it is our grief that keeps us connected, because it is not. Our grief does not keep us connected to our loved ones who have passed on, or passed away, or passed out of our physical relationship. Our grief doesn't keep us connected. Our grief separates us. However, we want to remember to move past our grief, because if we resist our grief, if we either hold on to it or pretend it's not there, those are both forms of resistance. And we want to move past and through that. We want to choose to move forward, even if it's frightening. Now, I mentioned this last week, and it bears mentioning again. Fear is a form of resistance. Fear is a form of resistance that we should evaluate, because some forms of fear are actually helpful. Some forms of resistance can be beneficial for us. If I go to the edge of a, for example, 63-floor building, at the top on the roof, if I go to the edge of the roof and I look down and I feel fear of falling, or I feel fear of jumping off, I feel resistant to jumping off, I would say that for most of us that is a good resistance. We don't want to be doing that, because there is that thing called gravity. And that thing called gravity is something that we have all agreed to when we came into these physical bodies in this physical universe. We all agreed that yes, we want gravity, and we will learn to use gravity to our benefit, just as we learn to use the powerful flow of intention to our benefit, just as we can learn to use the powerful law of attraction to our benefit. Now, we learned that gravity was beneficial for us if we learn to work with it. And that fear of stepping off the top of a 63-floor building is a good fear for us, because it's teaching us something, it's warning, it's telling us something. Not warning so much as telling us something. Because if we do take the leap, if we do fall, and we do explode out of these bodies, that's not the end. We have another go around in another body pretty quick, probably. However, that fear is telling us, if you don't want to go through the death experience, then maybe you want to check out what you're doing right now. So some of that resistance can be beneficial. But I would say that 99.99999% of our resistance is not beneficial. It's fear of growth. It's fear of change. It's fear of moving on, moving forward. It's fear of learning and becoming something new. Because in order to experience the physical manifestation of the energetic manifestation we have already put on our paths, we need to become the match to that. And that's part of our own evolution and our own growth. And a lot of the times we are resistant to that growth and that evolution because it's scary. We don't know who we're going to be. We don't know the experiences we're going to have. We don't know if we're going to succeed in the next experience. And all of that kind of fear is resistance that we want to try to move past and move through. We don't want to, most of the time, we don't want to ignore it or hide it or repress it because it will only grow. We want to be able to move through it. And some of that can be fake it till you make it. So first, you want to check, is this fear that I'm feeling a rational fear that is actually going to put me into a danger that I do not want to face? Or is it just fear of the unknown? And if it's that fear of the unknown, then maybe we can put on the fake it till you make it face, or maybe we don't even have to do that. Maybe we can just say, okay, I am going to move forward with this fear because I know that moving forward, the fear will dissipate. As soon as the experience begins and I start getting an idea of what it is and what's happening, then that fear will naturally dissolve. So in that first card, you see the resistance card. What did we see? We saw something that looked like the needles or the arrows on a compass. And around it, there were images that were something like fire. So what do we want to do? We want to notice the fire, that fear that is causing our resistance, notice our target or the direction we want to go in, and if it's safe, if it's physically safe for us, try moving in that direction through the fire, through that fire of resistance. That's courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but moving through it. So how do we do that? How can we perhaps lessen the flames? You know, the fire on a gas range, you can control, you can turn it down. There are ways of making the fire, if not disappear, at least reduce in some ways. And there are two suggestions from these oracle cards. The first one is earth. Earth, we are made up of earth. Do you recognize that? That our bodies, our physical beings are made up of the components of this earth. All of the elements come from this earth. Stardust, yes, but this entire planet is composed of stardust. And we are composed of this planet. We are made up of earth, and because of that, we are naturally connected to the earth. We are earth beings. We are connected to the earth. And you see in this card, there are trees with roots going down into the earth. And just like those trees, though we don't have physical roots, we have energetic roots that go down into the earth and also up into the heavens, but also down into the earth. And the closest and the most real feeling, or the most concrete feeling connection that we can have, is generally the earth connection for most of us. We receive strength from the earth. Yeah, those energetic roots that go down into the earth, we pull up strength, we pull energy up from our Mother Earth, or our Father Earth, whatever you want to call it. There are some traditions where Earth is the father and the Heavenly Mother exists. But from the earth, we pull up our energy from the earth. We pull up our strength. We receive from being grounded in the earth reality. We receive energy. We receive power from the earth. And that power can help us to turn down the heat of the fire. Also, we can allow that fear to move through us back down to the roots, into the earth to be recycled into more positive energy for either us or other beings on the planet. Now, that tense energy of resistance, that closing down is energy. It's an energy of closing and constriction, but it's still energy that needs to go somewhere. And one direction it can go is back down into the earth to be recycled into something new, something beautiful, something amazing for us and for others. So the Earth card is teaching us one possible solution to our resistance, and that is one, receiving our power back from the earth, because as we constrict, we can restrict the energy flow back from the earth. So opening back up our connection, our roots to the earth, and receiving our power back. And also allowing some of that tense energy to drain down through the roots to be recycled. Now the third card is a book. It's called Your Story. We all write our own stories. Do you know that? You write your own story from your experience. We experience things in the physical universe and we interpret them and we write them in our, not exactly physical book, but in the books of our memories, in our energetic books. We write down all of our experiences, but not the experiences pure and simple as they were in the physical universe. We write down our interpretation of those experiences. We see two people talking off in the corner, and that is our experience. The pure experience is we see two people talking in the corner. Now, the actual experience might actually be different from that. There actually might be a third person that we don't see. We don't know that, but our experience, our pure experience, is two people talking in the corner. And then we interpret that. We can interpret that as two mean people gossiping about us. We could interpret that as two wonderful, beautiful people sharing their experiences of life. We could interpret that as two people who are in combat, and one of them is for us and one of them is against us. We can interpret that experience in so many ways. And we write that down in our books. We write our stories, both good and unpleasant, let me say. Let me call it unpleasant. I don't want to call it bad. Wanted and unwanted. Let's call it that. Now, we write our wanted experiences and our unwanted experiences in our symbolic books of our memory. And we feel we cannot escape that story that we have written. Once we have written it down in our books, that has become us for ourselves. That book, that experience becomes us. We create ourselves through that book. We are writing the stories of our lives and we feel bound to those stories. Once I've interpreted those two people as being gossipers talking dirt about me, it's going to take something big to shift that. And what I've written is that I am the talked about person. I am the gossiped about person. Have you ever found yourself doing that? Have you ever found yourself creating victimhood for yourself? We all do it. I do it, and I know that you have done it as well. We all create victimhood for ourselves. We write that in our books, along with the successful person. Yeah? I am the successful person in this area. I am the winner of this. I am the creator of this, and I am the failure at this. Now we create this complex character in our books of ourselves. And once we've written it down, we feel that that is us. We become that story. And becoming that story limits us. We write our labels for ourselves and we feel we become them. Again, I am the victim. I am the wounded. I am the grieving one. Also, I am the winning one. I am the successful one. I'm the funny one. I'm the cute one. All of those labels. Whether we like them or we find them painful, limit us. Because if I am the cute one, I may be limiting my ability to be the intelligent one, or the sexy one, or the witty one. Because I'm the cute one. My friend over there is the sexy one. My friend over there is the witty one. I'm the cute one. We limit ourselves. So many of our stories limit us. And that is a form of resistance. We write our resistance into our book and we become that resistance. So, what can we do? We can break free of the story. Every time you hear yourself labeling yourself as this one or that one, liked or disliked, we can try to recognize that as a label that is interesting, fascinating to look at, but not us. We are the ones that are observing those labels. We are the eternal beings in these physical bodies having these human experiences that are limitless, that are so much more than the cute one, so much more than the gossiped about one, so much more than the failed one, so much more than the successful one. Can you hear that? So if we can let some of that resistance drain into the earth as we reclaim our power, and then we look at the stories we have written about ourselves and realize that they are only stories, we can move past those stories and become the fullness of ourselves as we move with the powerful current of intention. Now, the grounding part is probably easier for most of us. Learning to see the stories we write about ourselves and recognize those stories for what they are takes a lot of practice. And I'm still practicing. And part of my practice is doing these videos. This is part of my practice as reclaiming one of my aspects as the fullness of myself. Not labeling myself as the YouTuber, but exploring myself through these videos, through my engagement with you through these videos. So, again, resistance. Resistance is going to be there. And we have a choice. Once we've noticed it, once we've noticed that we're in a never-ending cycle or that we're not moving forward, we can look at it. Look at first, analyze. Is this resistance a helpful resistance? Is it saving my neck? Or is it most of the time the other one? The one that's preventing me from moving beyond my story, moving beyond where I am now and who I am being right now. And can I let some of that resistance drain? And can I open myself to possibilities of who I can become? And move forward. Friends, we've got 4 questions around this central theme of resistance. At least 3 of them are on the quirky side. Let's take a look at that first quirky question. The first question is, what is the adventure? And remember, this is what is the adventure around resistance? Because we don't want to resist resistance. I can't emphasize that enough. The moment we start feeling resistance and say, I'm not going to feel that, I'm going to resist this resistance. The moment we start doing that, what do? Like every form of repression, because that's a kind of repression. Like every form of repression, we are giving it energy to grow in the dark, to become a huge shadow monster for us. We do not want to resist resistance. So, what is the adventure of resistance? Is an excellent and quirky question, and flips it on its head. Yeah? Turns it upside down. What is the adventure of resistance? Rather than resisting it, what is the adventure it's indicating? What is our adventure through this resistance? And the two cards that answer this are perfect. It's almost as if I'd gone through the deck and chosen them consciously, figuring out what would be the perfect answer, but that's not how it happened. This is the universe. This is the divine speaking through the cards to us. The two perfect cards, as always, came up. Because if you do cartomancy, you know the deck never lies. We may not be ready to listen to the answer, but the deck never lies. And the two cards we got, first one is Judgment. And this is a gorgeous card from the Tarot de Saint Croix. Judgment. You see, I don't know if you can see this in the photo I put up. It's actually difficult to see in the actual card, but there are three people in this card, in this Judgment card. This is supposed to be the Duomo in Siena, I believe, and there are three people. One who is very obvious, clearly, the large human figure, female woman figure in front with her hands like this, looking down, who is a teacher or a friend of the creator of this deck, doing something called spiritual gazing, which I don't exactly know what that is. I'm going to try and do some research. I haven't figured it out yet. But to her side, there are two more figures. One, a child dancing in a beam of light, and farther in the distance, a much smaller person kneeling, praying to the angels above. And all of three of them are experiences of the Judgment card, I believe. One of them is, what does the Judgment card mean? What does it mean? It's awakening. It can be awakening, it can be rebirth, it can be an inner calling, it can be a spiritual realization. And those three are perhaps doing stages or aspects of that. We have the person kneeling in prayer, which is the typical to my experience, the Judeo-Christian traditions of, not in Judaism, the kneeling posture is not necessary. But we have in Islam and Christianity, we have that supplicating position of kneeling or bowing on the ground in prayer, praying to the divine, indicated by the angels up in the ceilings. So one aspect of the Judgment is prayer. Prayer for guidance, prayer for that inner calling, prayer for that spiritual realization. Another is perhaps that spiritual gazing that is indicated at the very front of the card. And I'm not exactly sure what it is, but just the name makes me think of another aspect of looking within for the inner call, the divine call from within, to find or to feel for it, because it's always there. It's always there. We just need to be open to it. And the third being the child dancing in the light, which is the actualization of that divine call to me. That feeling of being reborn in the light of the divine. Whatever you want to call it, divine, be it Brahman, be it God, be it Allah, be it Divine Mother, be it Great Spirit, be it Gaia, be it Zeus or Kronos, or whatever you want to call that divine universal mind that is creating this physical reality. And that we are indivisibly connect one with. Now, feeling that rebirth, that connection. So what is the adventure? The adventure through resistance is the call from it, to being called from our resistance into our journey, being called from our resistance into our spiritual realization of where we are going and who we are becoming. It's the awakening to the resistance that we are feeling. Just awakening to our experience of resistance can be the first step of the adventure. Because a lot of the time, we don't realize our resistance. When we beat ourselves over the head that we're not doing it right, or we're not getting out of this, or we keep, again, meeting the same guy or the same woman, or we keep making the same mistake, we're not realizing that those are indications of our resistance. So, awakening to the resistance is the first step of our adventure, perhaps. And then being able to open to, that energy from above as well as the energy from the earth. And what does that lead us to but this amazing Knight of Wands from the Fountain Tarot? Did you notice? Now, to me, this figure looks like a woman because there's something about his or their pose and the clothes that they are wearing that remind me of women's fashion from my childhood. So I see this as being as a memory from my childhood of a particular kind of woman wearing a particular kind of clothes, dancing a particular kind of dance. But that is not necessarily the truth of this image. It's just a memory for me. So what do we see? We see this knight in this card. Remember the knights from last week were seated knights, which were a little bit odd. Both knights from both decks, from the Sang Croix and the Fountain, were both seated. This knight is up and in motion. This is the knight of energy, the knight of passion, the knight of inspired action and of adventure. The adventure is us. We are the adventure. When we hear that call, we can get up and we can dance to our spirits and create. That is moving through our resistance. That is what moving through our resistance can feel like as we flow with our intention. Have you felt that? Have you felt your resistance melt and suddenly feel like just this moment, I'm feeling the feeling of the desire to move, to dance to some kind of music. It's also impulsiveness in the good sense, or impetuousness in the good sense. Having the impulse to move is sometimes seen as impulsive. I get the impulse to do something, the impulse to move, the impulse to ask somebody a question, the impulse to go into a store and buy something, or look at something, or to open a book and look at something, to experience something, or to explore something. An impulse. It can be impulsive. And the good sense of impulsiveness is the Knight of Wands as well. The good side of impetuousness, of come what may, I'm going to do what my instincts are telling me. That impetuousness, that joyful impetuousness, not a resistant impetuousness of F you all and I'm going to do me, but rather, yes, I am going to do me. Whatever that is, as I become who I'm going to become. As I dance through my life. That's the Knight of Wands. That is the adventure of moving through resistance. Let's look at the next question and the two answers for it. The next question is, what am I hungry for? And remember, some feelings of hunger are a sign of resistance. What do I mean? If you feel hungry for something because you don't feel it in your existence, because you feel lacking it, that is a sign of resistance, and we want to take a step back from that hunger and look at it. Look at where that resistance is coming from. Where is our lack of perhaps faith or belief or whatever it is that is making us feel hungry for something that is not here? So sometimes hunger can be a sign of resistance. However, sometimes hunger can be drawing us forward. That loving, passionate kind of hunger for something that is out there, and I know I'm going that way and I want to go that way and I'm hungry for going that way. That hunger for moving forward with the current, the powerful current of intention, is a sign of moving forward. That hunger for something that I feel empty. I feel like I don't have something, I need something to fill this emptiness, is a different kind of hunger and one of resistance. So we want to be able to distinguish between those two. So what am I hungry for? Where do I want to go? What do I want to experience? Where is this? I smell something good. What is that smell leading me towards? And the first answer is an unsurprising answer. The first answer from the Tarot de Saint Croix is the High Priestess. And if you're here watching me talk about tarot cards, this is not a surprising answer for you, I'm sure. It definitely is not a surprising answer for me. We are all hungry for fully embodying our personal High Priestess. You notice in this card, the High Priestess is holding the Tarot de Saint Croix in her hand instead of a book. Yeah? She's got some of the traditional symbols. She's got the Isis, the double moon symbol up above her head. We've got the two pillars behind her, the dark and the light. We've got a kind of veiled image behind her a little bit. You can read it the way you will. It's a very Egyptian-looking High Priestess. But she's also holding a deck of tarot cards, which is wonderful. So, High Priestess, we are hungry for the fuller ability to trust and to have our intuition available to us. We want to embody our intuition. We want to embody our sacred knowledge and have fuller access to the sacred knowledge that is within all of us. We want to embody our divine feminine. You don't have to be woman to be divine feminine. We are all divine feminine, just as we are all divine masculine, because we are all divine, non-gendered spirit. That divine energy, in my understanding, and you can have your understanding and I can have mine. My understanding of the divine is that it is beyond gender. It is not divine masculine, it is not divine feminine, it is divine. And when divine begins expressing into the physical realm, then we begin to have that split of things that we call light and dark, hot and cold, large and small, and perhaps yin and yang, in Korean, and yang, and perhaps even masculine, feminine. Whatever that means to you. So, if you see the feminine aspects of the divine, you can also see that we all have those aspects within us, and we want to embody those to their fullness. Because the more fully we embody both our divine masculine and divine feminine, the more we are in alignment with the fullness of the divine. So we want to have our divine feminine and masculine embodied within us. We want to have access to our subconscious minds because there's so much information down there. I don't want to say down, there. There is so much information there. We want to have access to our clairvoyance, our premonitions, our perceptivity, our sixth sense, if you will. Our vision, our hearing, our clairsentience, all of that. We want access to all of that, and we're hungry for that. Not in that it's lacking, but in that we recognize that we have it and we're hungry for its fulfillment or for its growth and development. Can you feel that as part of your reality? Can you see how that would be part of moving beyond resistance? Now, this card beside it from the fountain might be a bit of a surprise. It was a surprise for me, the tower. And in this version of the tower card, what do we see? There are two pyramids, one above the other. And what we would call upright pyramid and an inverted pyramid balancing on their points. And the inverted pyramid above is larger and has become unstable and is breaking apart. And there's fire burning from within it. Because it has grown perhaps beyond where it should be. It has become unbalanced. It has accreted. There's a lot of accretion on the top. Yeah? It has gathered too much stuff to it, built up too many walls, built up too much stuff on top, out of balance with its base, with its foundation, with its original form. And it's become unstable, and it's time for an upheaval, a breaking apart, a breaking open, a breaking away. The tower is the card of sudden change, of upheaval, of chaos. Why would we be hungry for that? Because it is a sign of our resistance cracking away. The reason why we are going through this tower moment is because we have built up stuff that is not sustainable, that is no longer serving us. We have built walls around us, perhaps. Our resistance to our own growth, our own balanced growth, has become a burden, has become a weight that we can no longer bear, and it's time for it to crack open and for us to release. It's the card of revelation, revealing the truth of who we are within all of this stuff that we've built up around us. It's this card of the ego breaking away. Not all of the ego breaking away. You can see that it's not being demolished to the ground. But a lot of the times as we live through life, as we have experiences, our ego becomes distorted. It becomes sick. It becomes unwell. Our ego develops patterns and habits that limit us, that protect us, and we want some of those protections. Some of those protections have served us. And that's the reason we have built those protections. Some of the walls we have built around us served us for the time. But we are always there's always going to be a moment when we are hungry for those walls to crumble so that we can move forward. So we can move past and grow beyond protecting ourselves from whatever it was we felt we needed to protect ourselves from. The tower can be an awakening of a kind. An awakening from within the walls that we have built up around ourselves, which are, in many cases, a form of resistance to our development, to our growth, to our evolution. And once that stuff breaks away and we get back into balance to our core of who we really are, we can grow again, both in base and in top and in balance. Hopefully continuing to grow in balance, top and bottom. And sometimes we'll grow out of balance and then we'll have to crack open and crack away that out of balance part of ourselves. So we are sometimes also hungry for our tower moment. We are hungry for it. We're hungry for that which has kept us rooted in place or behind what we thought of as protective walls, but which are really our prison cells. We're hungry for those walls to break down. We're ready for the walls of Jericho to tumble, for us to reveal the truth of ourselves, for our own evolution, our own growth, and our own movement with the powerful force of intention. Sometimes we're hungry for that tower moment. Sometimes that call from the judgment card is also a tower moment. And we're hungry for that, because we know that that is going to open us up to the powerful force of intention. Let's look at that third question. This third question made me laugh because it is truly a quirky question in this deck of inquiry cards. What is the joke? So, what is the joke about resistance? Remember, the first question was, what is the adventure? We turned resistance on its head. We're turning it on its head again, because sometimes we take our resistance way too seriously. And perhaps we took it a little too seriously when we were going through all that tower and breaking apart and breaking open, and we want to bring back our humor, because resistance closes down our sense of humor, and we want to open ourselves in humor and lightness. So what's the joke to our resistance? And the answers to this question are from the Tarot de Sainte Croix, Temperance, and from the Fountain Tarot, Strength. Now let me just mention something about the Temperance card. Many people who talk about and teach tarot see the Temperance card and the Justice card, the Justice card, as being very similar. Some people even have difficulty distinguishing the two. They see them both as being balancing things and weighing things, and for me it is not the case. For me, actually, I see the Temperance card and the Strength card as being similar. Very different, but also more similar than Temperance and Justice. Because for me, Temperance is not balance, but harmonizing. It's the alchemy card to me. In this card, you can see a woman with the fullness of herself, her full eternal self, there with her as she takes two things in two different colored things in two different vessels and pours them together, making a combination, not balancing them, but mixing and harmonizing them into one fullness. It's like taking masculine and feminine, whatever you want to think of those things as being, and incorporating them into the fullness of yourself. Not balancing them as two separate things, but incorporating them into oneness. To me, that is what Temperance is. It's the alchemy of creating something new. From not opposites, but ends of a spectrum. To me, masculine and feminine are not two different things. They're directions on a spectrum. And yang, yin and yang, are not two different things. They're directions on a spectrum. Just as hot and cold are not two different things. We experience them differently, surely, but they're two directions on a spectrum of temperature. So, temperance is alchemy. Do you know what alchemy is? Alchemy is a science that was brought into Europe through the Middle East, through Islam, Muslim interactions with the West. And it's actually the origins of chemistry, you could say, and pharmacology in the West. Alchemy was one way of creating what we would now call prescription medicines. Alchemy was the way that we would now call chemistry, and perhaps even forms of jewelry. Alchemy was also a spiritual path. One of the original goals or objectives of alchemy was creating gold, transmuting one substance into another physical substance. For example, lead as being a base, impure metal into what they believed was the purest metal, gold. By getting rid of all of the impurities and combining things and mixing things and removing impurities to get to the pure state, gold. But in exploring that topic, it also became a spiritual path, also called the magnum opus, the great work of becoming the pure soul in conjunction and in union with the divine. So, temperance is that. Temperance is the alchemy of becoming the purest form of ourselves by mixing all of our aspects into one and becoming the purest form of self. It's a spiritual journey. It's a journey of purifying and integrating the soul. And it's in that journey that we're able to get through and past and have the strength to move through the fire of resistance. Also, the next card, Strength, is another kind of harmonizing card. Strength to me is the harmonization and opening to the fullness of interaction within our psyche. Now, we have various aspects to our psyche. Jung perhaps would have called it superego, ego, and id. Well, actually, that's Freud. I'm sorry, that was Freud. Now, superego, ego, and id. And Jung took some of that into his model of the psyche. We have the conscious, the superconscious, and the unconscious. And they're all some interlocking. And the goal is integration. Or the way Maslow would say it, Abraham Maslow would have said it, is called actualization, self-actualization, or the way Jung called it, now it's gone again. It's becoming the fullness of self. Individuation, becoming who you truly are. And that's what the Strength card is to me. Because we have this sometimes frightening to us, unconscious kind of animal part to ourselves, and we have this more familiar, more easy to examine, more human feeling part of our conscious psyche. And to integrate, to individuate, we want all of that to become very friendly with each other. And some of that is called shadow work, some of that is called integration, alchemy. We want to become friendly. So the Strength card is that familiar association and interaction between all aspects of the psyche, for me. And then the resultant courage and strength of character and having that integration, having a developed sense of compassion for other people and for ourselves. It's fortitude, because when we are integrated, when we're individuated, we are stronger individuals, able to have compassion and empathy much more freely. So, the joke is we already have everything we need. We have everything that we need to get past our resistance. We don't need something out there to be able to get past this resistance to move us forward. We have everything that we need already. What we need to do, what we want to do, is to integrate, to have access to it, to do the inner alchemy that will allow us to move past our resistance. The joke is we think that we are missing something that will get us past our resistance, and we're not. We've got it all. We've got it all here. We've just got to become the fullness of ourselves as we are now. Remembering that we will always evolve. Our path is one of evolution. But we've got everything that we need right now. We're not missing or lacking anything. That's the joke. The joke is we think that we need something, we need to discover something to get ourselves past the resistance, and we don't. We've got it all. It's all here. We're just not aware of it. And that's what we want to do. We want to become aware of it. We want to integrate it within ourselves. We want to discover it within ourselves and become the fullness of ourselves, to move past and through resistance. Let's look at that last question. The last question is, what can I receive more fully? And it's difficult to imagine receiving things when we're in resistance because we've put up a wall, and it makes it much more difficult to receive. And so perhaps that's the reason for this question. What can I receive more fully? What can I allow myself to open to receiving more fully? To allow myself to move beyond resistance? And the first answer is the Four of Pentacles, which in some decks is often thought of as the card of greed. But this card is not telling us to become the greedy ones. We don't want to be the ones that are hoarding stuff, because that's a form of resistance. We don't want to receive more resistance to get ourselves past resistance. The beautiful thing about the Tarot de Saint Croix version of the Four of Pentacles is that it is more of a numerological understanding of the fours. The fours of stability and construction. It's the emperor of the small cards. Yeah? The emperor is card number 4. It's the 4th card. It's the card of structure, of strength, and of authority. So we want to receive more fully our own security, that we can build, and we have built, our own security, our own stable platforms to move forward with. We can receive more that we have the security, and we can build more of it as we are open. We can receive more of the truth that we have control over our experience. We are the emperors of our material realm. And that's what this card is reminding us, that we can receive that truth, that we are the creators of our own realities, and therefore we are the creators of our own stable platforms, moving forward with the powerful current of intention. And the card right beside it is the Ten of Wands. It's the card of burden. It's the card of responsibility, extra responsibility. It's the card of hard work, of toil and turmoil, of travail. It's the card of exhaustion, exhausted labor. Now, this card is not telling us that we need to work harder. This card is telling us to receive the truth that we are working too hard, that we have taken on too much at this time, that our resistance is because we are burdened. We are working too hard. We are exhausted. And you'll notice that this is card 10. It's the end of the suit. And we can make the choice to take the next step, to put down those 10 wands, to let other people carry their weight instead of us taking it on ourselves. Our need to carry so much for so many people is a form of resistance. Not allowing people to carry their own loads is a form of resistance. Thinking we've got to do it all is a form of resistance. A resistance to their path and a resistance to our path. So we can create our stability, we can create our platform, and we can set down our wands. We can set down our burdens. We can relax into the powerful flow of the river of intention. We can relax into it, open to it and relax into it. And we can receive that knowledge more fully. That we don't have to carry all those sticks. We don't have to be afraid of our platform being wiped out, because we can create our platform and we can set down the load. We can move past our resistance and feel safe and feel stable in the current of our intention. So remember, resistance is not our enemy, as we've seen. Resistance is an indication of what we are doing. And our indication of resistance can be, again, cycles that keep repeating themselves, that feeling that we're not moving forward. We can allow some of that resistance to drain into the earth and receive some of our own power, and we can look at the story we're writing about ourselves and notice that it is just a story, it is not us. We are not our stories. We can realize our adventure and open to our call and dance with the passion of our inner voice, our inner flame, our inner Knight of Wands. We can follow our hunger for our own intuition, our own becoming fully our divine selves as we allow the tower to crumble around us, because the time has come for it to crumble. We can realize the joke that we've got everything that we need. And we can receive that we can create our stable platform and set down the load. We don't need to be burdened by resistance. Does this make sense to you? Does this speak to you? I'd love to hear in the comments below. So friends, remember, the information about these decks will be here in just a moment, so stay tuned for that. Take a look at the decks and the creators once more. There will be links below if you want to go buy them. And hit that like button if you haven't already. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the alarm so you get notifications of when I've uploaded videos, usually once a week. And share this with anyone you think might get benefit from this anywhere you think that people might receive it. I'd love this to get out into the world. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I'd love to interact with you. I'd love to hear your stories. When and how do you feel resistance? How do you move past resistance? Does what I've said ring true for you? Let's chat. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.